Good morning, fellow Plexers. Today's video is going to be about the good health of your Plex server, and we're going to cover scheduled tasks, a troubleshooting step like the Plex Dance, and how sometimes, especially with TV series, the two relevant databases may not always agree with each other, especially with anime. So let's start off with Plex's Scheduled Tasks support document, which is another great document to be aware of and to look over. So I'll use my server as an example. I start my scheduled task at 1 a.m. I stop them at 8 a.m. I choose to back up the database every 3 days. This shows you where that backup is placed. I optimize my database every week. I remove old bundles every week. I remove old cache files weekly. The metadata gets refreshed every 3 days. I do not update all my libraries during maintenance. And the reason I don't is my libraries are scanned every couple of hours automatically under another option. I allow my media to be upgraded during analysis while maintenance is running. I refresh my library metadata periodically, and I perform extensive media analysis during maintenance. This all happens overnight when no one's streaming off my server. My friends and family are in bed, and if someone happens to be up, one stream and all these tasks running work fine together. So if you go to manage library, if you go to library under settings, this is where you can scan libraries automatically. Now if you're running a plain Jane Windows install or even a plain Jane Linux install, you can probably set your libraries to scan automatically, and that way if you add new media, you don't have to manually scan the library, and it's just added. But you do not want to use this setting if you're using portable storage or possibly just a bunch of drives thrown together. This is a great setting if you're using a RAID setup. If you have this set and you empty your trash automatically after every scan, if you happen to unplug a portable drive, Plex will automatically pick up the change, rescan your media, empty your trash, and everything will be gone. If your files are named properly, you can add them back in by just plugging the drive back in. But if you've added custom artwork, custom collections, or your naming game wasn't up to what it should be and you had to fix matched a few series, you'll have to repeat all those processes again. So with a portable drive, if you leave this setting off and this setting off, you do have to scan manually, but if you accidentally unplug a drive and even rescan, you'll see that the media is not available, but it's still in your server because you haven't emptied the trash yet. So it's good to understand when you should use these. My media is on a Synology NAS, and I'm running Plex in a Docker container. There's an issue with Linux called IO Notify, where once you get over 8,000 some folders, and you can imagine how quickly you'll reach that number with a lot of TV series, especially if you have some long-running series. Well, I can't automatically scan my library. It'll screw up the detection of intros and end credits. There's no such thing as an outro. And so I have to turn those features off or manually adjust the IO Notify settings on my server every once in a while to make everything work. And I've just decided that's not worth doing. So I don't scan automatically, and I do a time scan every couple of hours, which works fine for me. And if I want something to be found by Plex immediately, I'll just manually scan the library. So this IO Notify is a Linux issue. which would affect Docker installs or a bare metal Linux install. So anyway, a little bit of troubleshooting. Scheduled tasks go a long way to keep your server healthy and keep problems from cropping up, and it's a great practice to be in, along with naming your media correctly. So let's talk about the Plex Dance. There is no support document that talks about the Plex Dance, but you can search for it at the forums, and I'll throw the link in that'll lead you directly here to an April 15th post by Otto, a Plex Ninja moderator. If you've added media to Plex and it hasn't been named correctly, and usually this is with TV show episodes, and you realize you have to reformat the series, get the correct series name the season folders correctly, and name your episodes correctly, sometimes getting all that done and rescanning doesn't allow the series to match properly. And that's where the Plex Dance comes in. So you move your files out of Plex into another directory, something that Plex isn't scanning. And then you rescan that library, and then you empty the trash. And then you go into the troubleshooting section and you clean your bundles. Then you go make a cup of coffee, because if you've never done this before, it'll take a while to do it the first time if you have a decent sized library. And even though it's not part of it, while you're here and you're having coffee, optimize your database if you've never done it before and it's not set up as a scheduled task. Then come back to the list, and this is the most important part. Double check your naming. And we'll do this little bit of extra that opened up off screen. Don't assume that your naming scheme is good enough. Follow Plex's rules. And if I can find it quickly, well, so this is great. This is perfect. You notice Plex always uses a space dash space as a separator between the proper show name. They always have the year in it, and they have this S01, E01. And they also always use season 01 and not season 1 and not season space 1. It's always season space 01. But that's not what I'm looking for. And again, as I mentioned in most of my videos, these are unscripted. They're off the top of my head. And sometimes I can't talk while I look. So you can also put the series ID from either TVDB or TMDB into the show name, and even the episode name if you want. But this is what I was looking for. One of the most recent changes to this document is Plex instructing you to put extra information into brackets. This information is informative only, and putting it into brackets will prevent the scanner from looking at it, which, all things put together, you have great insurance that Plex will make a match on the first try. And because I prefer TMDB over TMDB, I set my series or my series advanced setting to pull episode ordering from TVDB instead of TMDB. And one of the primary reasons I do that is I prefer working out of TVDB. Now, occasionally, and mostly with anime, and I don't collect anime, but my adult son loves it, and I've been in the forums long enough to have picked this issue up. Lots of times with an anime...
You have a text message.
Excuse me. So especially with anime, you're going to run into troubles. With this show, Plex lists 3 seasons, or I'm sorry, TMDB lists 3 seasons. A special seasons, a season 1 that has 167 episodes, and the final act season. Well, if you look over at TVDB, even though they're not really the normal separation of one season for each year, they have things broken down into 7 seasons. And just because this has a special name after it, it's still labeled as season 07. And this is where it gets tricky. So if you name to the TVDB, but you have default Plex library settings for a series, you're going to run into issues. So let's bring my Plex server back up. And let me go to libraries. And I'll edit my library, go to the advanced section. And I would never recommend anyone changing from the default scanner or agent. But I do think you should either leave this alone and only work out of the TVDB database, or only work out of, leave this alone and only work out of the movie database, or change this to the TVDB and only work out of that database. You'll save yourself a lot of trouble if you eliminate TMDB in my view. And the reason I say that is there's always the option to sort by all seasons at the TVDB that you don't have at the movie database. So let me just look in season 3 for a second. Okay, so these are all Japanese names, but say I was searching for episodes and I knew a name of an episode, but I did not know which season it belonged in. I could go to the all seasons view, and then with my web browser I could search for it and find it and quickly know that it's season 3 episode 9. So if you've ever tried to get a series like Looney Tunes organized for Plex, and maybe you've got 400 or 500 episodes and they're all mislabeled, it's a painstaking process to watch just enough of the beginning of an episode to grab the episode name, which then you can keyword search for at TVDB, and you can't do that at the movie database. So the movie database is my Plex naming Bible for my movie libraries, but it doesn't exist in my world for my TV shows. Just because TVDB is so much easier, but you have to understand that they don't always agree with each other, and if something's going on, that's a big troubleshooting step to kind of look at both and see if there's a disagreement to get you going in the right direction. Again, if you want to use the movie database for your series, Plex is set up to do that by default. Just don't consult the TV database, because every once in a blue moon there's going to be a discrepancy that'll screw you up. So I think I've covered everything. You want to set scheduled tasks up, you want to know how to use a Plex Dance, and you want to know how to set a TV show library up to pull metadata from the alternate and better database, in my opinion. So thanks for watching, and happy Plexing.